Blake, what's the worst thing you could do to a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle 15-year?
In Tennessee, we do a lot of Jack Daniels and Coke, but if you do a Pappy Van Winkle and Coke, the Kentucky Bourbon Police will break down your door faster than Jake Goslin can say X32.
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who would never commit such a bourbon crime on principle, because I'm never gonna get a bottle of Pappy 15-year anyways, and I'm here with my co-host who brushes his teeth nightly with Pappy Van Winkle, Toby Walters.
Can you imagine if I brush my teeth with Pappy Van Winkle? Have you ever tasted Pappy 15-year?
I haven't. You can't do that with lunch money. You need like the other money.
You need, NFL owner money.
Yes.
To do that. What would a bottle of Pappy 15 run you?
About $4K.
$4,000. Wow. I assume it would be totally lost on me. It's like I can tell you, Blake, this is the greatest taco on earth, and you could taste it and you'd be like, dang, Toby, this is a great taco. But if you tried to get me to try Pappy 15, like, I think it would be totally lost on me because I don't like the taste of bourbon or whiskey. Like, it's lost on me.
That's why for my Christmas bonus, you got me 2 bottles of Pappy Van Winkle 15 last year. I didn't let you sample. Oh, wait a minute. Shelly told me not to tell you. That was an appreciation gift that she got me from you.
Like my wife would give you an appreciation gift.
For putting up with you.
Wow,
I'd give her an appreciation gift as well every year.
And I'm just laughing at the reference of, brushing my teeth with bourbon. Is Pappy bourbon or is it whiskey? Or
It's technically it's both.
Okay. So there's a line from The Simpsons that I just love, and it was Marge, the mom, tells Bart, go brush your teeth and get ready for bed. And he says, "Aw, Dad, do I have to?" And he's like, "Well, just rinse your mouth out with soda. You'll be fine." I'm like, that's like the worst advice ever, but it's so great. But I was thinking of, you're saying the worst thing I could do to the greatest bourbon ever is to mix it with Coke. And I'm thinking, some of the worst things we can do ever to our glorious consoles in audio land is to put beverages on them.
Who would dare?
Who would dare? So we got a church reached out just this last week, and they have a beautiful recording studio. And Blake, this is like you talking Pappy Van Winkle 15 to me. I'm saying they have a full-size vintage API console. And to me, that is Pappy 15.
Would you brush your teeth with that console, though?
If I could, I would like brush my teeth on that console. And I'm just thinking of somebody setting a drink on that console and just being like, that is zero respect right there. And just thinking, like, some of the stories I've heard from recording studios and live events, we've had plenty of people on talking about, I know our friend Nate, he was doing lights for Keith Urban at the time, and a girl leans over to see, like, what he's doing on a lighting board, and she sets her beer on the Grand MA console that he's running the lights with, and he's like, "Get your drink off my board."
No one's ever seen that girl ever again.
No, she is buried somewhere out in the field.
6 feet under the stadium.
And I remember hearing this story of, and this makes perfect sense, like, famous artists go into recording studios, and it's not like they treat it with the utmost respect every time. But they have, the kind of money that can get Pappy 15, so they can kind of do whatever they want. And I remember my friend who used to work at a studio in LA, and I don't know if you know this, Blake, but Shaq did a rap record back in the 90s. And so he said, I was working at the studio, and Shaq and his crew would come in every night and work on the record. And he said, Shaq would work on the record, but all the rest of his crew would just party.
Treat it like Weekend at Bernie's meets Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yes. And so at the end of the night, which was really like 6 a.m, because they would have it all night long, Shaq would go to the owner of the studio or the studio manager and would just basically say, "All right, what's the damage tonight?" And he would just write a check for like $20,000 for all the cleanup, for replacing things, for their techs to come in and, clean out the faders of the console because they're drinking all sorts of stuff. And and I know we also had a story of somebody said that they had a Digico board at their church and somebody spilled something on it. And they called up Digico, and Digico was like, "Well, as long as it's not soda, you'll be fine." And they're like, "It was soda."
And that's why all church techs only drink bourbon on Sunday now instead of soda.
Obviously, if you just spill alcohol on your board, you'll be fine.
It cleans it.
It's exactly, as long as it's pure alcohol. It's as long as it's not mixed with Coke.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And a thing I'd love to mix with Coke is a man who would never water down his bourbon or spill Coke on a Digico, the senior production tech for Summit Church, but he told us that his title changes every time he sees it. Conor Hale. Conor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Conor, have you ever spilled anything nefarious onto a console?
Not on. Under, but never on.
Under seems totally fine. Like, as long as it's not on.
I mean, it was under the desk, too, so it's not like it was even on the table.
So, like, the desk and maybe the floor got sticky, but the console's fine.
I mean, it was just coffee, so.
That's
But it was very distracting in the middle of a church.
So any of us with concrete floor churches that slant, like if you have slightly stadium seating, it's almost like without fail, every week somebody spills their big water bottle. They got those giant Stanleys, and it's like clink, 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 clink.
My freaking ninth graders, every Wednesday, one of them kicks over the other ones, and I have to shoot them a death look. It's so distracting. And as you say, Toby, all the women in Middle Tennessee, I'm about to get us in trouble, they all have a Stanley. And then my wife will bring a Stanley and her coffee mugs. You got two different beverages.
So, Conor, did you create a kerfuffle when you spilled your coffee? Was it like a loud and distracting moment?
Well, luckily it was carpeted floor, so
Okay.
it wasn't too loud, but
Yeah.
I did try to get it cleaned up as quick as I could.
And was there a large or a very loud 4-letter word that escaped your mouth?
I would never in church.
Never. Neither would Blake.
Sure, let's believe
Yeah,
that.
that sounds believable.
You know what's not believable, though, is 5 Truths and a Lie, the game we play every week with our guests to introduce them and see if we can spot their lie. So let's just get right into it. Let's see
Okay.
if Conor can fool us.
Okay.
Number 1, Conor was a college swimmer. Not with that beard. It soaks up too much water.
It's like you always hear about swimmers, shaving their whole body. But if he like fully body shaved but had his beard, that would be hilarious.
Imagine Michael Phelps with a giant beard.
Yeah.
Number 2, been to Nepal 3 times. I'm appalled. Number 3, started serving in production because my dad broke his back.
Okay, that'll be an interesting story.
That would not make me want to get into the thing that broke my father. Number 4, I have never spilled a drink on a console.
Well, we just had that story, and do you think there's any chance that he lied to us so he could throw us off? We'll find out.
Number 5, I've hiked to Everest Base Camp. Do you know how many people die hiking Everest?
Well, base camp and the summit are base camp is very respectable, but the summit is a very different thing.
Well, he goes to Summit
Base camp?
Church, and you
That's
only
a
get to
good
go to Summit
point.
Church if you summit.
That's a good point.
Base camp is just a trek. It's just like a walk in the park. It's not like a hill hike.
A walk in the park to Blake is like 13 steps.
A heart
so.
attack on a stick.
Yeah.
Y'all did save me, though. I was going to pick that. Number 6, I have only lived in 2 states, but live in the state I grew up in.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to lock in on Nepal. He's not been to Nepal through. Wait a minute. I'm going to lock in the
Nope.
college.
You already locked in. You already
all
said
right.
it. Sorry.
I got Nepal. Toby, are you taking the swimmer?
So if we didn't have the conversation about the console, spilling a drink on a console, I was going to say that for the first time ever, all of these were lies or none of them were. Because I could see Conor, like Conor's got that personality of like, yeah, he listens to the podcast sometime and we always ask for we're waiting for finally they're all lies or none of them are lies.
Toby, nobody listens to the podcast. I never publish this.
But I'm going to go with a college swimmer. He was never a college swimmer.
It's going to kill me because
I
I
know.
wanted to do that. All right, Conor, what's the lie?
Never been to base camp.
Oh, you talked me out of that one, Toby.
And I mean, he has Nepal and then he has Everest. Like Everest is in Nepal. That's where you go to Everest.
No idea.
They linked up. But okay. So if you've been to Nepal 3 times, why did you go to Nepal and how come you didn't go to base camp?
So every time I went to Nepal, we went with a nonprofit called Wine to Water. It's a nonprofit based on clean drinking and sanitation. So every time we were there, we're doing work. We did do some stuff close to the Himalayas for fun on the last day, but never hiked to Everest while I was there. Paraglided off a mountain, but didn't hike to base
Is
camp.
like, if you're in Seattle and like Mount Rainier is like the very obvious one in the distance. When you're in Nepal, is like Everest obvious, or is it like, no, you're in the Himalayas, so it's just, there's peaks everywhere?
Well, Nepal's really weird. So where we were most of the time was only at 500 feet elevation, and it's 100 degrees every day
Ooh.
and like 100% humidity.
Ooh, fun.
So it gets pretty steep on the other side of the country. So
Okay.
we were pretty low. We were closer to the India border most of the time.
Blake, how far up Everest could you hike before you just die?
Let me check my Fitbit. It says do not attempt. So Connor, you started serving in production because your dad broke his back. What was he doing? Was he carrying Toby up the stairs or something?
Yes, actually. He was in Nashville and he broke Nashville. So this was a Sunday morning. The production team was a little bit behind and getting the trailers loaded. This time we were a mobile church. We had crank towers for the front of house lighting truss. And Dad was trying to, rush him out the door to get him up, and he was doing it by himself. And it slipped down and fell on him, crushing one of his vertebrae. So then basically after that, I was like, man, these guys need help in here. So started serving right after that.
Wow. How's your dad doing?
That was 10 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that. He's doing a lot better.
Okay. I hope so.
Did he ever go back?
A lot better.
Did he ever go back to production?
He never did it. Well, he wasn't serving in production. He just drove the trucks that all the trailers were in. So
I legit almost broke my back from a lift when I was 23 or 24. I was working for a production company in San Diego, and we were doing we were hanging speakers in a gym or something, and we had a small lift, and I was like putting it away one day, and it almost came down on me. It was one of the scariest things I've ever experienced.
Is that your one where you put the ladder on the lift?
Well, same company, but no, different moment.
Gracious.
It's amazing the things that people in production and production adjacent do that should have killed them, but thankfully didn't.
All right, knock on the desk. Okay, Connor, let's talk about all the moments that you almost got killed. Tell us about your tech background. You're the central tech director at one of the largest churches in the country. So give us a quick snapshot of your background and what led you to your current position.
So started serving at Hope Community Church back in the day, at a mobile campus. Was always interested in just tech in general. Helped the kids team do their computer check-in and stuff and getting their network set up each week. And just continued serving, went to school and would serve in church there, doing a little bit of sound. Setting things up. I worked in a couple arenas, setting up sound stuff, barricades, flooring, pretty much everything in between. Just kept on serving, and then I moved to App State after college. Moved to another college, and kept serving there at another church and doing more venues, and became a venue manager at a bar. And yes, I did work at a bar before working at a Southern Baptist church.
We'll forgive you.
Did some venue management there, booking bands, doing sound, that kind of stuff. Then the pandemic hit, and pretty much restaurants shut down, venues shut down. Couldn't make any money. Applied to be an intern for the Summit Church with their Summit Institute. Mostly doing pastoral internship stuff. And came down here and did that. And right after I finished the internship, started working here full time.
Well, there we go. Worked out.
So you've gone from intern to central tech director in 4 years?
I went from intern to tech associate, which was a part-time hourly role, to campus, was like a campus production lead or campus production director running one of the campuses. It was actually a broadcast campus for about half a year. And then just through different roles, doing central support stuff back and forth with campus production when there wasn't somebody there. And now here I am, just still supporting everybody.
Yeah.
All 13 of our campuses.
Dang. Blake, you started with Church Gear during the pandemic, and I feel like you've actually gone down in status here.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I started off hot and was like, prove yourself and then coast. They call it quiet quitting in my neck of the millennial woods.
You're taking too long to quit. So let me help you out, buddy. You're fired.
Oh, I haven't been fired on the podcast in a while.
I know. Are you still keeping track?
I am keeping track every single week.
Connor, do you want an opportunity to fire Blake?
Oh, he'd never.
Blake, you want to work for me? I'll fire you in a heartbeat.
Hey, you know what? I love the Carolinas.
I really think this is a great YouTube series at some point at Church Gear. Like, Blake goes to work for some church in America, and why not Summit? I mean, your best friend used to work at Summit. He was a worship leader.
There we go.
Yeah.
And we'll tease it here. We're not going to tell it here, but I did run tech for the first time last night at church in an emergency situation.
We'll get to that disaster.
What
story
position?
later.
Everything. Slides, the mixing board, the mics. I had my Church Gear shirt on, and the youth leader goes, Blake, get in the board. You're our tech guy. I was like, what? So we'll tease that out.
I love that you called it a mixing board. That's cute.
It was something.
Was it like a blender?
I would have been more comfortable with a blender for sure.
Yeah. You mix other things in your life.
Yes.
So, Connor, you said 13 campuses. I assume that is a lot of staff, volunteers, different systems. Like, how do you and your team keep things from spinning out of control? Do you have to simplify everything, or is there just like, is there watered down bourbon in every moment just to keep the sanity at bay?
Mostly the same systems. We keep we're a Yamaha house, so everything's Yamaha. So theoretically, anybody that's serving at one campus could go to a different campus and jump on. Obviously, scale a little bit. We keep it simple. There isn't really a reason to go too complicated. Most people won't hear the difference between running 96 or 48 or having 50 tracks or 2 tracks.
Yeah.
So,
what Yamaha boards are you running? Like broadcast versus the other campuses?
Most of our campuses are permanent campuses are on CL. We're moving to DM or PM. And then mobile campuses, we install at the school a QL5. So when we go into a school, we work with the school and say, hey, what are your needs? And we install a PA and a console. That way they're not having to set up PA console each week. It's kind of a good faith movement into the school as well.
Yeah.
So.
And are you guys consistent with your PAs, and how about like your lighting consoles and video setups?
So in the schools, we always have the ETC consoles, just the school knows. We stick with MA lighting. We were on the .2, but they've discontinued that. Now we're moving to the MA3 Command Wing XT. Great simple board. PA, we mostly use D&B. Shout out to Zach Brady.
Hi, Zach.
I'm drinking out of a D&B mug right now.
Oh, yeah. You looked where they are.
Yeah. They've been a great, consistent product for us. And then mobile campuses usually use a Martin rig of some sort, usually WPM. Simple, clean, easy to set up.
Yeah. And how are you guys set up as a team as far as like staff versus volunteers?
For permanent locations, we shoot to have a full-time production director at that campus that'll oversee booking of different techs and volunteers for weekend services and special events. Our mobile campuses get like a 10 to 20 hour a week employee that's mostly just focused on scheduling people. And then we support them with a regional director that oversees more of the repair and then just pastoral stuff over them. And then they report to our associate production director, who oversees all the weekend and kind of more special event stuff. And then above him is Justin Manning, who's our production pastor, or pastor of production, however you want to spin it.
Yeah.
And then alongside them, we have a broadcast team, and then our support team, which consists of me and one other person. And we just run alongside them, supporting and repairing everything.
That's got to be fun.
Yep. I just got a text this morning that we have a dead video router.
Oh.
So I got to go fix that this afternoon.
Fun new project. Do you need Blake's help on that? I mean, he stepped in last night.
I mean, if you've got a Kumo sitting around, you bring it with you.
I do have a video tech here that's top notch that I bet if I
yeah.
brought him with me.
Oh, Nathan could crush it. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if we have a Kumo right now. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we get him in reasonably often, so we'll be right there. As soon as we're done recording, we will shoot over to Raleigh with our tech and gear. Perfect. So with stuff that I'm sure fires come up all the time, and you guys are supporting, that many campuses, how do you and your team just find a balance of not ending up working 100 hours a week and just create a healthy, repeatable culture?
It's definitely one of those things of finding margin. You got to have the expectation that there's going to be weeks where you're going to be working 100 hours. But if there's nothing going on, there's really no reason to be in the office just working to work. Spending time at home, if you can, working from home with your wife, kids, definitely can get overwhelming some weeks. And it's hard when someone calls on a Saturday night, it's hard to say no to answering their call and solving their issues. But you also have to be able to say no and let them figure it out themselves.
Yeah. Have you read Ruthless Elimination of Hurry?
I have not.
Okay.
We were supposed to. I was that person and didn't.
You were too busy.
Yeah, I was too busy ruthlessly eliminating the hurry.
Yes.
Toby, you know that my small group is reading that book right now, right?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, we're about midway through. I really like it.
Yeah.
It's
a great book.
I was already only working like 5 hours a week. I work -7 now.
Trust me, I know. There's no one that eliminates hurry like you, Blake.
Well, you're not supposed to read it. You're supposed to listen to the audiobook at 2.5 times speed.
Yeah, while doing other things.
Here's the thing. Toby doesn't like it when I listen to audiobooks, so I don't tell him if I do. I just say I read it. Can't tell him I.
Yeah, so Blake, do you want to admit whether you're actually reading it or listening to it?
I have the physical book because Tyler bought the book for everybody.
That didn't answer the question, though.
I am physically reading it.
Okay.
Because I'm making notes in it.
Okay.
I'll show you my notes. I'll prove this.
I'm proud of you, kid.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I need to write this down. That counts as a reverse of the fire from earlier.
Yeah, you're hired now. No, yeah, we've had Comer come out to our church before. I think this stuff is great. I think church people in general work too much. Some more than others and some less than others. I think it's a balance of eliminating just doing busy work and overworking yourself. If you're always pouring out, your cup will always be empty.
How does one do that? Like, is that a conversation y'all have had as a tech team to the church and as a whole, like to your leadership, to be like, hey, because there are crazy weeks here, we do show up less on weeks when it's less crazy? Because I think a lot of people feel intimidated to either do that or have that conversation of like, guys, this has to balance at some point.
For us, it's really been our production pastor, Justin, and then our executive pastor of Wicked Ministries. They both kind of really understand and know what it's like when you're too busy. And so they're willing to accept and say, take off when you need to. If we're working 100 hours at Christmas, they're going to give us a couple extra days after Christmas to not work and relax.
That's nice.
I was just having a conversation yesterday with one of our church tech friends, Eric, out in Phoenix, and he was saying how after Easter, they had rented a whole rig to go outside with, and the day after Easter, the couple days after Easter, they still had to strike everything. They had to get that cleaned up, returned to the rental house, and during those days, one of those days, an email was sent from HR of the church of just, hey, just a reminder, don't come in these few days, that this is a gift off from leadership so that you can have balance in your life. And he's like, oh, yeah, gee, thanks. That doesn't apply to the production team, but thanks for the reminder. And so I'm sure, Connor, that you guys experience this sometimes, like you're working when nobody else is. And is that... does that get under your skin sometimes? And do you guys have to just talk through, this is our role and we have to fight frustration through that?
I think it's one of those balances of, if you're always comparing your work to everyone else's, you'll never be satisfied. It's really easy to be like in the office working and then not see the small groups pastor ever in the office. But what he's dealing with is, dealing with phone calls of small group issues at 9 p.m. at night or 2 in the morning and stuff. And that's not something we have to deal with.
Yeah.
That is a tough one. I think that we have to relearn all the time that, if you compare what you do to other people around you, all it's ever going to do is hurt you because everyone has such different schedules, responsibilities, weights. And I think we always see the goodness of other people's jobs. We never see the bad, like you're saying, Connor. So that's very wise insight.
Yeah. It's even on the same team. Like, it's really easy to be, if you're working a bunch, it's really easy to be like, why is this person never working or whatever, but not knowing exactly what they're doing but at the same time, you can't compare someone else's workload if you're overworking. If you're purposely overworking yourself, you can't expect other people to overwork themselves too.
Yeah. It's, we fight that here at Church Gear. We have, different teams, different parts of the company. And so like the ops team, the tech team, the shipping team, like they come in Monday through Friday, like 8 to 5 kind of normal shifts. And then, sales and marketing or our drivers or our church engagement team, like they're not here on a consistent basis. And so our ops team doesn't see what they do, but they're working all sorts of weird hours. And, we go to Blake, we're going to go to Philo and
party.
We're going to be ready to die at the end because it's so exhausting for 3 days in a row, just pouring that out.
You'll be ready to die as an introvert. I'll be ready to run through a brick wall as an extrovert. Also, someone told me at dinner the other night I'd look like Todd Elliott, so I'm even more ready to be at Philo.
Yeah, that's, we're sorry, Todd. That's super offensive, and I don't see it either.
Hey, I'm taking that as a badge of honor. Also, this is coming out after Philo, so maybe Todd kicked us out over that comment.
Quite possible. Connor, do you have any?
He
go ahead.
He banned you from even going.
He did. I had to beg him to let Blake in just because I needed Blake to do things so I don't have to do everything.
That would be the real way to hurt me. Firing me in Church Gear doesn't matter. If Todd banned me from Philo, that would be something to hurt.
I wonder if we could get Connor. I do think we can get a signature sheet from the production community, and if we get enough signatures to ban Blake from Philo,
oh no,
I don't think it would take much.
We should do that today.
Yeah,
put it out right now.
Yep.
Change.org. Don't accept their petition.
Of course, this is coming out
Blake's
after
access.
Philo.
We'll remove Blake's access from Instagram and post it on there.
Yeah,
that would actually hurt him more probably.
Maybe. We'll try both and see which one hurts you more, Blake.
I'm a glutton for punishment. What can I say?
Connor, do you have any what I'll call small saviors in your work that you'd like to share? Just do you have any little things, little hacks where you're like, this, it might be super expensive or it might be the cheapest thing ever, but you're like, this has saved me more times than I can tell.
A PC.
A PC. Explain.
I've run Parallels on Macs before, and every time I open it, it crashes. So buy yourself a PC.
Really?
Yeah. So are there certain programs or certain pieces of gear where you have to have a PC because it's only written for that platform?
QSys, all of Martin's stuff. I know there's a bunch of others, but most of the time I run it on a PC anyways.
Yeah.
I thought his PC was his personal connection to Jesus, and that's why everything worked.
Wow, that was rough.
That's the other hack is the other hack I would say is it's not really money, but it's spending time at home. If you're at home, you're at home, and then when you're at work, and you can actually focus on work.
Yeah. Now I'm, going back to the PC. Does the creative team ever make fun of you?
Well, I run both. I'm weird.
Okay.
At the same time?
Yeah, side by side.
How is that even possible?
You just have we have two computers in front of us, Blake. One of them could be a PC.
But he's running the same program on both computers at once?
No.
Come on, Blake.
Two different programs, two different computers.
Sure.
Have you ever had two different drinks in front of you, Blake?
I didn't know that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs could hang out at the same time.
Of course.
They can't.
Not this side of heaven, I guess.
That's why you also have two phones,
Yep.
Connor, we don't talk about my burner phone, man.
And the pager.
You got to have the pager on your belt lip.
Connor, do you have any words of advice for how to make that distinction of when you're home, you're home?
If your wife is annoyed that you're working, then you should be home and not working. It's a very quick way to know that you're overworking. If your wife's calling you out for it.
And have you had the gall to ask your wife, hey, honestly, am I working too much? Or, is that too scary a conversation to have?
Oh, I don't even have to have it. She just tells me and yells at me for it.
Blake, will your wife interject that your mind is in your work?
She's usually like, "You're not working enough. You're bothering me. Go away."
That sounds accurate.
Yeah, I think having, wife or other people that are able to see into your life and know whether you're working too much or not is really easy to just accountability, whether it's working or other things.
And how do you encourage your team or young new tech leaders that come up under you of just how to protect that distinction, even if they're not married yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, without having distinct hours, it's really hard, like to say if I'm at home. Well, we usually say like before 9 a.m. and after 5 p.m. It's like that should be your time at home.
Hmm.
Uh, and that's available to, that's the hour set by our church. So if you're going to work during the day, to work during the day. And then at night, after those hours, just turn your phone off. There isn't a reason to answer it. Unless you're on call or something. Like if there's an event happening and someone calls you a couple times, maybe answer it.
Yeah.
There really isn't a, there's not like a set, that's what's hard is there's not set schedule in production. It's like there's a special events happening, but so you got to support those.
Yeah, it very much sounds like production people are doctors. So, you're set for certain hours of surgery or whatever, but you can also be on call when emergencies happen. So, I let's just call you Dr. Hale from now on.
Let's not.
Did you say the hours were from 5 to 9 or 9 to 5?
9 to 5.
Okay, that's much better. I was sitting here like, good Lord.
Well, that's Sunday. It's 5 to 9, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Connor, we always love story time here on the podcast. Like, do you have any just great stories, moments of, disasters at Summit or other production moments or really cool, fun, this was an amazing moment we pulled together and, story time with Connor. You got any good ones for us?
One of the very first ones that comes to mind is this has been 2 years ago now. For Easter, we rented out one of the local amphitheaters, 20,000 seat amphitheater. It was a lot of work, a lot of very early and very long days leading up to it, getting everything loaded in, set up. Tensions were high. And at the very end, we did baptisms.
Mm.
And being able to watch 200 something odd baptisms.
Wow.
And then being able to watch our production pastor baptize his kid, just, it made it worth it.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get caught up in how hard it is or how difficult or how annoyed you are with someone else because they didn't plan. But in the end, salvation is the ultimate joy.
Yeah, that's awesome. For the arena, was it fully stocked with the production system or did you guys have to bring in the full system?
We had to bring in everything. So we brought in an LED wall, PA, lights, staging, everything.
What was were you guys working a full week in there? Like, how long did you have to get that all set up?
We had one day first load in and rehearsals. And then the next morning we did some rehearsals and then it was showtime.
And how was that time frame for you guys? Did it feel super tight or did you
Yes.
bond together?
Yes. At the end, it was great. At the very beginning, between motors dying in the air, so the PA can't go out, to things not talking properly. It was very stressful.
Yeah.
On load-in day.
Did it all come together in the end?
Oh yeah, it was great.
Any advice for how to keep your cool in that moment? Because you're always thinking, okay, tomorrow it'll be all right because I'll be through it. But I'm currently in it. So, I mean, how are you keeping yourself from panicking or just existing in we joked about the ruthless elimination of hurry, but existing in such a state that you get frazzled out by the time the event happens because you're so stressed out trying to get it ready. What's your mindset like in those moments?
I think sometimes you got to learn when to walk away. There could be, whether it's too many cooks in the kitchen, something's not working. Just if you're starting to get annoyed, just walk away for a minute. Come back with a clear head. If you're in there angry or whatever, someone's going to get hurt, whether it's physically or mentally. And when I say physically, and I'm not saying fists will be thrown. You get frustrated and make mistakes, and that's when people get hurt. Like
Yeah.
rushing too much, and then someone drops a lift or something like that.
Yes.
Connor said he's never dropped a drink on a console. He's never said he's never dropped a drink on a person. So
That's true. You ever like thrown your drink into somebody's face?
I have not.
would you like to try?
Should all try that right now.
We should all do it to Blake.
Yeah.
And all say you're fired simultaneously.
That'd be great.
I've been trying to get a dunk tank installed at an event for years.
Yeah.
Just go to a Baptist church.
Well played.
Nice.
Yes. So, Connor, we've been talking, all throughout this episode of drinks spilling on consoles. Is there anything you can tell us that some people might not know about you?
That I run Drinks on Consoles Instagram page.
No. Egads.
Blake, when did you finally find out that Drinks on Consoles was Connor's page?
I'd been following Drinks on Consoles, probably with the first couple weeks that I took this job back in 2020.
Yeah.
I was looking at other Instagram pages. I was like, oh, these people are so cool. Like, this is awesome. And I was a fan.
Yeah.
And like, then a couple times I got a return message from Drinks on Consoles. I was like, oh my gosh, they replied to me. And then we kind of became like pseudo buddies. I'm like, I don't know who this is. This is funny. Like, we're talking. And I get a message at MXU Live 2023 in Atlanta. And they're like, we just talked in person. I was like, we just talked in person. Like, it was torturing me all day. Roediger wouldn't tell me who it was. Hester wouldn't tell me who it was, either of the Hesters. And then I found out at the end of the day it was Connor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well played, Connor. What inspired you? Like, what was the moment you're like, oh, this is a fun idea. Let's start this thing.
So it probably would have been 2018, 2017, something like that. Somebody started posting pictures of Drinks on Consoles in the famous Facebook group, Church Sound Media Techs.
Yeah.
And people were annoyed with it, and some people thought it was funny. So then I just started taking those photos and just started posting them on Instagram. The only person to think to do it. Someone else tried to do smokes on consoles.
Not nearly as fun.
No, it's not nearly as dangerous and
It's true.
thrilling.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as dangerous.
If you put a cigarette on a console, it's not going to fry the whole thing.
Or even like just a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Except kill the person using the console.
How long did it take to start gaining some traction where people were like, oh, this is fun, and start to submit their own pictures?
I think pretty quickly, and then I didn't really think about it for a while, and then it slowed down. And I just realized the other day that I haven't posted a picture in a while, so I need to get back to it.
Yes. We
So
need our
send your
community to
photos.
start submitting some more photos. Have you ever, created moments for yourself and posted those pictures?
I cannot answer that.
For legal ramifications. And do you have any like favorites of? I remember when this one was submitted and it was just a hilarious situation.
There's been a few times where I have photoshopped like a drink on Jeff Sandstrom's console or Big Mick from Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the early days, just as fun.
Yeah.
Those were always fun.
Yeah.
To mess with them a little bit, because I felt like they would never do it themselves. But then Jeff ended up sending one of a hot dog on a console.
Yeah. And so you never really got into any trouble for photoshopping drinks on their consoles?
No.
No. Well, we've actually got Jeff off to the side here to finally come on and scold you. But
That was an old photo too.
Yeah.
A very old photo of him in front of a console
you
I posted.
Bold enough to tag Jeff when you did that back in the day.
Oh, of course. There's some that I tag people in, and other times I try to keep them. If I know the person, I'll tag them. If I don't know them, then I'll leave it anonymous so that they don't get in trouble.
I like the anonymity. You never
Yeah.
know whose console it was or
I
what
know.
drink.
and that's
Yeah,
just a fun
I-
page.
I can't imagine that, account manager at Claire or Spectrum would appreciate seeing beer sitting right on top of one of their Digicos. Or
Can you imagine if like one of these front of house guys got fired because you photoshopped a drink onto their console?
or even if they just posted it as fun and then
Yeah. Whoops.
The console companies need to use it as an ad opportunity. Like, our console's so great, even your beer can sit on it. Like, a beer can't take this console down. No?
I mean, are you willing to reach out to them and see if we can test that?
I'm down. I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I'm sure Ryan Shelton's like, sure. Let's put it on the 338. Let's put it on the Quantum.
I mean,
and see what'll happen.
what else was that top spot on the 338 made for? It's basically a shelf.
Yes.
Oh, that's a good one. Are there any consoles that you think are more apt to hold a drink like that?
Well, the Quantum 852 actually has a bottle opener underneath the armrest.
Wow.
What?
That's a bold
Yes.
move.
On the left side, if you look underneath, there's a bottle opener down there.
Like, there's a piece of metal that you can turn into one, or they put a literal designated bottle opener there?
I have personally never actually seen it, but I have heard from Digico and others that there's an actual bottle opener underneath there.
Now we're going to have to investigate this, Blake.
We're making some church gear lore here, some
All
church
right.
tech lore.
We're going to take a field trip to the Sphere, and we're going to look at their Quantum 8s, and we'll check this out.
Yeah, that's the only reason we're going to the
Yes.
Sphere. I had someone the other day talk to me about the Sphere, and they're like, maybe you haven't heard of it. And I was like, maybe I haven't heard of it.
Yeah.
Well, you just offended Tony because those are lavos there.
Not at front of house.
Is it? I thought it was all lavo there.
No, front of house is Digico Quantums. Lavo's
Oh,
like
wow.
all the infrastructure behind the
Wow,
scenes.
tells you what I know.
That's okay. I mean, I only know that because Tony told me. So hopefully he's not offended by the things that he said.
Well, Tony, you're talking about the other Tony. You're talking about your alter ego Tony, the Tony that talks to Toby. So I think you
Obviously.
might just be making up heresy here. Connor, give us some non-heresy, man. We wrap all our episodes on a tech takeaway. So what would be a tech takeaway you would tell the audience between, we've talked about work-life balance. We've talked about balancing drinks on consoles. What would be something you'd give our church production community to make their Sundays better?
Don't balance your console on a drink.
Oh,
Ooh.
that's
But,
good advice right there.
Yeah, it really is. Unless it's a Baron X32.
Sorry, Jake.
The only other thing I would say is find a hobby, spend time at home. You'll only be able to work in production so long if you don't find balance.
I like that. I'm also imagining, could we put enough, like a pallet of drinks somewhere and put a console on top of that? That would be a pretty good photo.
I mean, we have small enough audio mixers in the warehouse so you can just set it on a glass.
I mean, if you go look at the Instagram, there is somebody that got 4 Red Bulls, I think, and put an X32 on Red Bulls.
Okay.
Dang it. Someone's already done it.
Consoles on drinks. Yeah.
Well, Connor,
There's even a baby on a console.
what? What?
Maybe we could start a page, Blake on consoles.
We'd break all the consoles, man.
Yes.
Well, Connor, let's break the internet and point some people to where they could find you, man. What would you plug for the episode for people to find you?
At Drinks on Consoles.
Not as personal.
How ironic.
Or I guess you could follow me on my Instagram. I don't even know what my Instagram username, regular Instagram username is.
Was this
it's
really? You go.
T_Connor_H. Yeah, it's super complicated.
I thought this was like a real trade secret. I didn't know that this was such a open secret till now.
I didn't either.
I mean, it is what it is.
He's a sneaky guy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Connor, we appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, listeners, we're introducing a segment called Church Tech Confessionals. This is a time for any church tech to anonymously confess the worst thing they've ever done in church production. Here's one now.
Alright, I've got a confession. One time, I was deep in the weeds, working on some EQ and some compression, only to realize that both the EQ and compression were completely bypassed, and nothing that I was doing was making a difference on the sound at all. I could swear that I could hear so many things happening, so many things changing, and I wasn't doing anything.
Hey, if you have your own 3 to 5 minute church tech confessional, record it and send it to podcast@churchgear.com. And don't worry, we'll apply a voice changer and you'll be 100% anonymous. Your pastor will never know.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
Okay, Blake, so now we need a secret Instagram page. Maybe like, Blake is fired.
What about Toby on tacos?
Ooh. That's and I had tacos with Todd Elliott, so I was like Todd and Toby on tacos. I think that'd be a great one.
It's too many T's.
Too many T's.
But you know what I'd like to tee you up for is
share this episode. Is that what it was?
share this episode and a taco. And then,
Ooh, how about share this episode over a taco
yes, while your drink is on your console.
with Todd?
Yes.
Yes.